Joined now by the Conservative MP Jacob Rees Mogg, who was recently elected as chairman of the influential European Research Group made up of Brexit-backing Conservative MPs. Welcome to the Daily Politics.
Thank you.
Just before I come to you, Jacob Rees Mogg, George Freeman, should the government now listen to the CBI and their calls to stay inside a customs union after we leave the EU?
Look, I think the key is we have a business-friendly Brexit. Most of my constituents, when they voted for Brexit, wanted us out of the political union, but actively trading and part of what they were sold in the 70s.
So does that mean remaining in the customs union?
So let me finish the question. The problem with the customs union is that it prevents us ultimately from signing trade deals. Short term, industry in this country would like to remain in as predictable an arrangement in terms of trading in Europe as they can. If Liam Fox came back and said, I've got a huge trade deal ready to sign with Africa or with America, then I think the balance of probability would swing and people would say, right, let's grip it. So I think it's a question of transition.
Do you think at the moment, all things being equal, that Britain should heed those calls and remain in a customs union with the EU?
Well, some of those calls, I think, are designed to stop us implementing Brexit at all, and I don't agree with that.
But that's not the question I'm asking. Should Britain remain in a customs union? Should it be on the table?
I'd like us to negotiate a deep trade agreement with the European Union in which we have that free customs movement so that the Northern Ireland border works, so that we can sell our goods. I think Jacob wants that. I think our only point of difference is that Jacob, as a sort of sovereignty hawk, would prefer us to be out at the end of March next year, even if we don't have a customs agreement. I would like us to have a customs agreement, and if we didn't, paying the price of another year or two while we negotiate those trade deals, for me, would be a small price to pay. But we agree ultimately we want to be able to do those global trade deals, and that means coming out of the current customs union.
Right, but let's just be clear. At the moment, if the price is to stay in the customs union until, in the future, trade deals are struck or could be struck, you would be happy for that and you support that?
The key word is the customs union. A customs union, yes. The customs union, as Boris has said, is the current European Union. So I think we need to negotiate a customs agreement with the European Union that means we can sell across the European market. That's right. What my constituents
Well, and that is pretty well what is currently the arrangement of staying in the customs union, that actually all those regulations and standards would remain the same and the status quo would continue. Do you agree with George Freeman on that?
The status quo is not what people voted for. You must remember the CBI received nearly £1 million from the European Union between 2009 and 2015. It is not an independent body. It is backing inefficiency, a lack of competitiveness, and wants to remain in the European Union. It campaigned for the euro, for the exchange rate mechanism, and against Brexit. It's not representing small business or the consumer, and it's the consumer I want to help, and I want to be out of the customs union as soon as possible. I'll give you a specific example. Clothing has an 11.8% tariff on it coming into this country from outside the EU. Footwear, 11.4%. That hits consumers in the UK to very little benefit of UK manufacturers because we don't make many textiles or shoes anymore.
Right.
I'll give you a counterexample. Our aerospace industry, we're a major player in Airbus.
There are no tariffs.
I'll give you our life science
There are no
industry.
tariffs on aerospace.
Let me just make the point. There are other industries, life sciences, 60 billion a year. I don't want us to have to negotiate an individual customs arrangement with each of the countries. The challenge is a transition, so we get a trade agreement with Europe so that we can then, I agree with Jacob, access these global markets.
Mr. Barnier and President Macron have both said that we can have a free trade deal with the European Union based on Canada. That's great.
Right. Do you agree with that? Right. Would you accept that? A trade
Canada
deal
plus.
on goods? No, just the Canada deal on goods.
Well, it's based on Canada, so it would be enhanced Canada. That's on the table. That doesn't need us to remain in the customs union. And if we stay in the customs union, this is where I do, George, disagree, it means we won't be able to get the other trade deals because the other countries won't think it's worthwhile doing deals with an EU satellite.
So I understand that. Our only difference is avoiding the cliff edge. I want the businesses that I know are raising the money that, for our earlier conversation, will pay for the NHS, to have confidence that there's no cliff edge in 15 months' time. I'm not surprised they want to know. And for me, continual membership of a customs union while we get those trade agreements in place is a price worth paying.
And I want British people to have cheaper food, clothing and footwear the day we leave the European Union. It will affect the standard of living in the poorest in our society the most dramatically, because the customs union is about protecting inefficient European businesses. It's not about competitiveness.
Right. Jacob Rees-Mogg, is part of the problem that there is a discussion about Britain remaining in a customs union or something very similar to what we have now with the EU, because the evidence hasn't been produced by Whitehall that new bilateral trade deals will outweigh the lost trade from the EU?
I think the trade deal issue is a bit of a red herring. Our biggest individual national trading partner is the United States, with whom we have no trade deal. Our biggest net earner, is financial services, which by and large don't have trade deals, aren't subject to the trade deals you get with manufactured goods. But what we want is to open up our market to lower prices and to make the UK more competitive and efficient.
Would you see it
and use that as a lever to get further?
Would you see it as a betrayal if Britain remains in the customs union or a customs union with the EU?
If we stay in the customs union, we haven't let the European Union, and it would be a failure on behalf of the government if that's what's happened. It would be a failure of their negotiations.
There's a contradiction in what Jacob just said. Well, hang on, because he just said actually that the main reason to come out of the customs union is to be able to do trade deals.
Well, you can't do trade deals unless you're out of the customs union.
They're much overstated. That we want to do them because they're a useful thing to have. But actually, our biggest single trading partner is the United States, with whom we have no formal trade deal. We have trade arrangements, but not a trade deal.
Why do you know better than the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, about what's best for the British economy?
Oh, the CBI has a history of getting things wrong.
And you don't?
It's a history, well, take the CBI as a commentator, that it got, as I said earlier, the RM wrong, the Euro wrong, it backed Remain, and it's funded by the European Union. It got £1 million between 2009
but why is it wrong on the British economy in this instance?
Because who it's representing is not the consumer, who I'm arguing for, my constituents, who I want to have lower prices and better quality that can be brought in from outside the European Union. The CBI is a spokesman for vested interests.
And do you agree with that, George Freeman? It's a spokesman for vested interests who shouldn't, and the government should not be listening to them.
Well, Jacob is right in the sense that the CBI is at the very corporate end of the ladder, represents the bigger companies.
And does Jacob know better?
But he's wrong, I think.
Well, it's not just me. A lot of people agree with me.
I think he's wrong to dismiss the views of business so casually. For me, I'm completely committed, reconciled to Brexit, but it has to be a pro-business Brexit. I want us to be not just more pro-business as a government, but a bit more business-like. If I was on the board of Great Britain, PLC, I would say, I understand that the customs union prevents us from doing a trade deal. Have we got any good ones lined up? And if we haven't, then I would say right now that is a step too far. But if we can get those trade deals, then I see the argument.
Right, but you're not convinced at the moment that you're going to be able to get those trade deals, or that it might replace,
well, not least because Jacob just said trade deals are a distraction.
Right. I mean, we'll come on to why you think trade deals are a distraction, because I thought that was the whole point of Liam Fox's job. But first of all, is this something, you talk to people all the time, you were chairman of the policy board before Christmas, in cabinet ministers and Tory MPs, is this something that is being actively considered, Britain remaining in a customs union arrangement with the EU?
I don't think at that level of detail. I think most colleagues, and actually most constituents, reconciled to Brexit, want us to make a success of it, want it to be pro-business. They said to me on the doorsteps, I'm sure to Jacob, we voted to join a common market, not a political union. We want to come out of the political union and stay in a trading bloc.
Do you think it's a possibility that the government will consider it?
I think there's a possibility we may negotiate what the PM has said rightly she wants, a full trade deal with Europe, which would see free movement of our goods and our ability to import.
But this is about
the
customs union. I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg, they might be listening to some pro-Remain Tory backbenchers like Ed Vaizey, for example, who at the weekend said the mantra that free trade deals will make us leap out of Brexit unscathed is for the birds. They take years and years to negotiate and often involve compromises that anger domestic audiences. Why is he wrong?
Well, they don't always take years and years. The US and Australia did one in 10 to 11 months, and it's been very powerful. But can I get back to why trade deals are a distraction? Because I think this is important. The real benefit we get is from lifting tariffs on goods that come into this country and non-tariff barriers. That makes the UK more competitive. It makes goods for consumers cheaper. Unilateral free trade has worked in every country that has tried it historically. Trade deals are an add-on benefit. And if you open up your market and you again go to people and say, we've opened up our market, do you want to open up yours? That then helps trade even further. But the benefits you get by reducing your input costs and the costs of consumption for voters across the country is very economically powerful.
But why then has Liam Fox been put in this position to seek out and scope free trade deals, which has been sold to the British public as a core part of the Brexit operation?
Because
part of being a swashbuckling, free trading nation is striking out on our own.
That's the second stage. Singapore is completely open as a market, but it does trade deals on top because it wants to encourage other people to be as open as it is. It's obviously in our interests. It's in the interest of the world to have as much free trade as possible. And if we can be a catalyst for global free trade, that's very exciting. And if the deals can lead to that, that is a benefit of them. But the key benefit is lifting our tariffs and making goods in this country cheaper, both manufactured inputs for industry, but also making goods cheaper for consumers.
The big challenge is transition. We have an economy geared to a European market. We've got to re-gear it to global markets. You can't do that overnight at the end of March next year. We need some transition.
Thank you very much, Jacob Rees Mogg.